All right, welcome to 14 days of thriving together, of learning to thrive together in these uncertain times. This has just been a chance for all of us to engage with small sort of mind, body, heart, soul, other challenges that give us the opportunity to not just kind of survive during this time. Although, to be honest with you, I feel like about 60% of the time I'm just surviving, but I'm just trying to increase the percentage of time where I'm actually thriving. And like we talked about a couple of days ago, that whole idea of I'm trying to recognize the good in every single day. I can let God hold the stuff that's uncertain and hard and insecure. And I know that He cares about those things. It does not negate those things to also recognize the good, to seek the good, to seek out the good. And one of the things that I think is really good about this time is an opportunity for us as individuals, as leaders, as parents, as people who are married, as people who are friends, whatever your relationships are, to maybe, I just want to say, maybe tighten up, sharpen up some places where we may have gotten into some bad habits. This is a chance to do things differently. So one of the things that I've really noticed is I have school-age kids. I have a 6th grader, a 9th grader, and an 11th grader, and our lives are really full. Outside of this quarantine time, I mean, we are sports, carpools, schools, and we're just going hard a lot, and we don't get a lot of time together. And I think that you guys who are parents know that feeling where school, sports just sort of takes over life, and you kind of coexist with each other, and you may coexist with a lot of people in your life. And for the first time in a long time or ever, we have all this time together. And if you're a parent, a mom of young children, you're like, hello, I've been experiencing all this time together since I gave birth to these children. And I remember those seasons really well too. And this is an opportunity in those seasons to build into your children some good habits that are actually easier to build in now than they will be later. So wherever you are on the spectrum, if you're a mom of young kids, a parent of young kids, a parent of older kids, if you're not a parent yet, wherever you are in your relationships, there's one place that I want to talk about today that I see as a real opportunity to really engage the ethic of Jesus's way of life that is so different than what is expected and kind of what sort of happens naturally to all of us in this area. So it's in the area of forgiveness, of when we just do something wrong. Now, I'm going to talk about forgiveness in a sermon through Hill City this Sunday, and I'll give you guys the link to that later, which will be sort of the broader context of like really when forgiveness is hard. But what I want to talk about is actually the technique of saying sorry. Like, what does it mean to actually apologize? And one thing that I've noticed in my own life and in my kids and my family life is how easy it is to think that we're apologizing when really what we're doing is kind of like rationalizing our behavior. And we can get into these sort of defensive apology, like tool tactics that aren't actually apologies. So tell me if this sounds familiar. Are you guys familiar with this? When someone says to you, I'm sorry that you feel that way. Like, that's not an apology. When someone says to you, I'm sorry, but, and then gives like an excuse for why the thing happened, that just happened, that's actually not an apology either. And you probably have seen this in your marriage, in your family, in your friendships. You probably have done it yourself a lot, which is how easy it is to justify and rationalize our own bad behavior for the sake of protecting ourselves so that we don't have to give an actual apology. Like, we don't have to actually own what we've done. And I think the reality is most of us do things wrong for reasons. Like, we do have a trigger that has caused us to sin or to have a moral debt or to misbehave or whatever that thing is. There is usually a trigger for it. So if we say, I'm sorry, and then name our trigger, we're not saying sorry for anything. We're not owning our own behavior. And I think this is one of those things that we can teach our children and teach ourselves. And truly, the best way to teach your children is to model it. Like, you have to actually do it this way. You cannot justify your own behavior with your children when you know that you are wrong. Doesn't mean that you still don't have authority. And I think that's something that happens. I think we may somehow in our mind think I'm going to lose authority if I admit my fault or admit the way that I didn't do this the way that I wanted to do it. You don't lose your authority. The only one who could take your authority from you is you. You can still hold on to your authority and claim and own the parts of what you've done that are wrong. So let's just give a basic example. Let's say I ask one of my children to empty the dishwasher and they don't empty the dishwasher and I end up emptying the dishwasher. So the appropriate apology, the right apology for that would be to name the behavior, to name the effect it had, and to name what you're going to do about it in the future. Okay. So a proper apology would be, I'm sorry, Mom, that I did not empty the dishwasher. By doing so, I not only disobeyed you, but also caused you to have to do work that wasn't yours to do. I will try harder next time. That's like an actual apology. A fake apology is, I know I didn't empty the dishwasher, Mom. You didn't remind me. That's not an apology. That's really an excuse. So you can see how there's a difference there, that we own the behavior. We admit the effect that it had on somebody else. So let's say one of your children has disobeyed, is bickering with their sibling and calls their sibling a name. Okay, the right behavior would be, I'm sorry that I said whatever, you're stupid, to my sibling. Not only have I hurt my sibling's feelings, but I've also disobeyed you. I will try harder next time. Like that's what an apology is. An apology is not, thank you for being patient while I, disregard you. I love this book, Choosing Civility. It's an interesting book. It's got these kind of little pieces to it. And one of them is where I'm getting a lot of this from. And I love this line in this book. A real apology is never a self-authorization to be inconsiderate. A real apology is not a self-authorization to be inconsiderate. Like if you're inconsiderate, you should apologize for being inconsiderate, not say thanks for being patient with me while I was inconsiderate to you, whether that's the grocery store line, the parking lot, being rude to a customer service representative, whatever. Like the whole concept behind here is that love must be sincere, hate what is evil, cling to what is good. And part of hating what is evil is knowing what is evil in us, the way that we can be so self-deceived about the reasons that we have sort of transgressed upon other people, whether it's being short because we're stressed, snapping at someone because we're not patient. Those things are not caused by the other person, they're caused by you. And so as adults, we have to learn how to also be able to own a true apology, to give a true apology. And I'm going to tell you, it's awkward at first. Like it might actually take you a minute to think, what is it that I'm really trying to say? What was my actual transgression here? Like, have I breached my integrity because I didn't do something in the time that I said I would do it? What is it that I have done, and what is its effect, or what is it that I'm supposing the effect has been on the other person? And you can ask the other person what the effect has been on them. That's the way that you actually create real reconciliation. You can't control the way the other person behaves. You can't control whether they're going to take your apology or not. The reason that we learn how to give true, sincere apologies is because it is the way that we sort of live into the Christian ethic of what it means to be people of grace. And it starts with how we're people of grace in ourselves. So one other note kind of on this that I think is a really important way that we sort of can twist this is if you put an inappropriate amount of emotion into your apology, thereby making the other person have to make you feel better. So if you put too much emotion into an apology that doesn't require that much emotion, I don't know if you've experienced this with your children or you've done it yourself. This is the whole idea of like, I am so upset that I have hurt you that I'm now going to give you all of this sort of pitiful emotion in order to kind of make you feel bad so I don't have to deal with how you actually feel about the situation. So I feel so terrible. I can't believe I did that. All of this sort of self-centered, strong emotional response that makes the person that you've actually transgressed against have a hard time even getting to own the fact that you hurt them. So what we want to do is we want to have a healthy, appropriate emotional response that matches the level of our transgression. So if I wasn't listening to my husband when he was talking, if I said I would do something and then I didn't do it, if all those kind of things, if I snap at one of my kids because it's been a long day, all of those things require like a pretty low level of emotional response. It's like, I understand that I hurt you. I am sorry that I did that. I want to try harder next time. That allows the other person to share their emotion. Like if it did really hurt them more than you thought, that gives them the opportunity. If you overwhelm people with a tidal wave of your own sort of self-pitying emotion, they have no choice but to not really tell you how they feel. So what we want to do is we want to match with sobriety, with like intent, our emotional response. We want to own not only our behavior, but the effects of our behavior without giving any excuses for why we did what we did. That's a separate conversation. What we want to do is just clear the air by actually asking for our moral debt to be forgiven. That's what we're doing. We've put ourselves into the moral debt of someone else because we've transgressed upon them in some way, and we're asking them to forgive that transgression. That's what a real apology looks like. I hope that's helpful to you guys. Again, that's Romans 12. Love must be sincere. Hate what is evil. Cling to what is good. Remember what I did, what effect it had, and no excuses for the reason it happened other than I want to try harder next time or how I'm going to try harder next time. Hope that's helpful to you guys. I'll drop that all in the email. If you join my email list at NicoleUnice.com, you'll get this and more, as well as links to previous videos. Hope that helps you guys, and I'm looking forward to talking again tomorrow.